Buckle up, guys. Today we are stepping into a courtroom where the judge wastes no time reminding the defendant that this entire situation exists because he ignored a direct order. An active warrant, a missed 30-day sentence, and zero patience from a bench. Right away you can feel the power imbalance. This opening sets the tone. Compliance first, arguments later, and the court is clearly done negotiating with someone who hasn't followed the most basic instruction. Alright guys, the defendant tries to flip the script by claiming the court is biased and that prior proceedings were improper. Instead of addressing those claims, the judge pulls the conversation back to the only issue that matters. He never turned himself in. This moment shows a classic courtroom reality. Procedural compliance beats philosophical arguments every single time, and the judge refuses to let the narrative drift away from that core failure. Alright guys, the judge draws a hard boundary and warns that continued defiance could actually increase the jail time. The defense attempts to slow things down by asking for a breakout and hinting at resolution, but the court isn't interested in side paths. This is where you see authority being reestablished. The judge controls the sequence, and until the contempt order is satisfied, nothing else moves forward. Alright guys, the attorney shifts strategy and argues for efficiency, suggesting the underlying cases be handled first to save time and resources. The judge shuts it down immediately, pointing out that over a year of delay came from the defendant's own actions. It's a clear reminder that courts reward timely compliance, not last-minute cooperation after prolonged obstruction. Alright guys, the defense brings up speedy trial concerns, but the judge turns that argument back on the defendant, stating he is the one who delayed everything. This is a pivotal legal moment because it shows how procedural rights can be weakened when a party's own conduct causes the delay. The message is simple. You can't create the problem and then claim protection from it. Alright guys, the judge emphasizes that multiple opportunities were already given. Offers of counsel, chances to comply, and time to correct behavior. All were refused. The courtroom dynamic here is about credibility. Once a judge concludes a pattern of defiance exists, future requests for leniency carry far less weight, no matter how reasonable they might sound on paper. Alright guys, the attorney argues that the defendant now understands courtroom procedure and wants to move forward properly. The judge isn't convinced, pointing out that even today the same unconventional arguments were used. This illustrates how courts evaluate change, not by what someone claims, but by what they demonstrate in real time. Alright guys, the defense pivots to a mercy argument, asking for leniency based on cooperation and a new willingness to resolve the case. The judge holds firm, reinforcing that consequences remain even if someone decides to comply late. It's a strong example of how timing affects outcomes in legal settings. Alright guys, the family hardship argument enters the conversation. Loss of income, dependence, and economic strain. The judge acknowledges the reality, but responds with a broader principle. Many defendants face similar circumstances, and personal hardship does not erase prior contempt. This moment shows the court prioritizing consistency over individual sympathy. Alright guys, the defense requests alternatives like weekend jail to minimize disruption, but the judge refuses, noting that no voluntary compliance has occurred yet. From the court's perspective, flexibility comes after responsibility, not before. It's a procedural sequence that the defendant still hasn't satisfied. Alright guys, the judge finally moves the case forward administratively, lifting the warrant since the defendant appeared, but keeps the 30-day jail requirement intact. This is a nuanced moment. Progress is allowed, but the original sanction remains untouched, reinforcing that showing up late doesn't erase past orders. Alright guys, when asked to identify himself plainly, the defendant hesitates before giving a conventional answer, signaling a partial shift away from earlier tactics. The judge notes the change but remains cautious, showing that credibility is rebuilt slowly and through consistent behavior, not a single corrected statement. Alright guys, the defendant attempts a direct appeal, saying he just wants to resolve the matter and move on. The judge clarifies that the charges are still allegations and keeps the focus on process rather than emotion. It's a reminder that intent to settle doesn't override procedural steps. Alright guys, the defendant offers to pay fines and regain his license, framing the issue as something that can be closed financially. The court makes clear that contempt of court is not a simple pay-to-exit situation. It's about compliance with authority, not just monetary penalties. Alright guys, the judge explains that wanting to just pay and move on comes far too late after a year of non-compliance. This is where the timeline becomes decisive. Courts weigh history heavily, and prolonged defiance narrows the available remedies. Alright guys, the defendant escalates by suggesting the judge should recuse due to external complaints. The judge calmly responds that no such formal notice has been received and reiterates the duty to remain on the case. This shows how recusal requires legal grounds, not personal dissatisfaction. Alright guys, the defense makes one last push to convert jail time into a monetary sanction, emphasizing remorse and improved understanding. The judge refuses again, stressing that earlier opportunities were rejected and procedural deadlines have passed. Finality begins to settle in. Alright guys, the defendant admits that prior legal actions were attempts to avoid jail rather than pursue genuine claims. That admission undermines credibility and reinforces the judge's earlier concerns about intent. In court, motives matter, and this statement weakens the defense's position significantly. Alright guys, the judge reiterates the record. Ample speaking time, multiple warnings, and clear explanations were provided in earlier hearings. By documenting this, the court builds a procedural shield against future appeals, showing that due process was fully offered. Alright guys, the hearing closes with the pretrial date set and the order to report to jail firmly in place. No conversion to fines, no delay, no recusal. The outcome reflects a consistent theme. Courts reward timely compliance and penalize prolonged defiance. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.